All right, so we talked about cells. We talked about organelles. What is the organelle? That's the powerhouse of the cell. The mitochondria. This unit is all about the mitochondria and how it makes that molecule of energy that allows molecules to move from what direction? Low to high requires energy. What do we call that molecule of energy? ATP. So we are going to learn about how ATP is made, okay? This is an overview of the full process that's involved in ATP. Fill in the blanks for me. The sun provides energy for who? Plants to do what? Photosynthesis. Good. When plants go through photosynthesis, what do they make? Glucose, which is what? Sugar. What do we know about glucose? What's the function of glucose? It does. What's the function of glucose? Remember we learned about glucose is a carbohydrate. What is the function of carbohydrates? Energy. Quick energy for us. For plants, it's actually stored energy. So it's a stored molecule of energy. And that is, even though it's short term, it's energy. And it enters the cell. How does it enter the cell? Through what? Cell membrane. If glucose is a big molecule, it probably goes through the protein channel because it needs to go with a little bit of assistance to get through. Okay? But when the cell needs glucose, it's going to either use ATP to bring the glucose in, or if there's less glucose outside, it might move. If there's less glucose inside, it might move in to balance out. Okay? Once it's inside, it makes energy for the cell, and that molecule of energy is called ATP. So the sun starts the energy for plants to use to make glucose. Glucose will be used by the plant as fuel or used for the cell to go through a process of making ATP. That process of making ATP is called cellular respiration, which is what this whole entire bulk of this unit is about. ATP, anybody know what it stands for? Any part of ATP? That sounds good, but no. But that sounded good. Nobody? Good. It is phosphate. That's as far as we're probably going to get. It's a triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate is the full name of ATP. Remember, what do you think ATP is going to be made up of? Try to remember what all organic compounds are made up of, even though it's not an organic compound, but lipids is an actual macromolecule. So is ATP, okay? What makes up a lipid? What'd you say? Protein is an organic compound also, another macromolecule. What makes up proteins? What makes up lipids? What makes up carbs? Sugar is another macromolecule. What makes up amino acids? What makes up lipids? What makes up carbs? What elements make carbon? What else? Nitrogen, hydrogen, CHON. Remember CHON? So we're going to have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and now we brought in phosphorus, okay? All that combination is in this molecule. But all you have to know about this molecule is that it looks like this. You have to know there's a structure here, there's a house-like structure in the middle, and then you've got your three, which is easy because it's triphosphate. So what are my orange circles? Phosphate, okay? Now, what is the function of ATP? You know this. Energy. It is the chief energy storing molecule that will help every process for the cell. So what is it made up of? So you have to know that ATP is the chief energy storing molecule. You have to know that glucose makes ATP, and then you're going to have to know the whole entire reaction. But first, what is ATP made up of? So this is my adenosine, the blue. Adenosine is actually the whole structure that's purple and pink. What's my orange? Phosphate. My triphosphate, we got 1, 2, 3. And phosphate is actually PO4 negative. So right here, this phosphate would actually have a bond right here with an O and another O and another. You don't have to know that. You just have to know that it's called triphosphate. If you need to write the word phosphate, 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 write it. 3 phosphate. Tri means 3. And I know nobody's going to know these, so I'm just going to give it to you. Adenosine is adenine and ribose. And what you have to know about my ribose is that it is a 5-carbon sugar. And that's why it's the structure of a house. It has 5-carbon sugar. This energy. So how does ATP release energy? That is stored, because remember, it's a storing molecule. So if it's stored, we need it. It's in there, okay? We need to release it. And the way it's constantly releasing is when this happens. What do you think is happening in order for the energy to be released? Bonding or breaking of bonds. That's a great answer. The energy is stored, and it's actually stored right here. So where is it stored? In the triphosphate. It's the highest level of energy in the phosphate bond is in the last bond. And that bond will break and energy will be released. I'm going to stop so you can take over.